NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go. All right, the fucking pilot back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void, and we are going way back in the time machine on this one. Holy shit, I haven't talked to you in fuck. I can't even remember the last time we actually spoke face to face, but who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Okay, so I guess most people would know me as Will Lajeunesse. What do I do now is a different question than what did I do when we knew each other.
Sure.
I guess I'll take a whack at both. I guess when we met, I was professional skydiver, doing AFF, free flying, canopy coaching, all that stuff. And what I do now is I'm a yoga teacher in France. So big change in my world since we've known each other. I don't know, like you said, I don't know when the last time was that we talked. But
it's kind of funny. If you had asked me 10 years ago, if the first thing you told me now you were a yoga teacher, my instant reaction would be to give you never-ending amounts of shit for it. And now my reaction is, fuck, I should have started yoga way back in because everything hurts.
Exactly. I mean, it's so different, especially like from how people knew me back then and from the person I was back then. It's been Shit, 12 years, I don't know, 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, as everyone changes a lot, I certainly have. So anybody who knew me back, for example, at Cross Keys or Sebastian, hearing that like I'm a yoga instructor and like I don't drink and stuff like that, they're probably like, that's a different person.
Right.
That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
Will.
Oh yeah. No, well, it's kind of funny because obviously we've stayed connected over the years on Facebook to some degree, and I'll see the yoga pictures and the inspirational posts and all this stuff, and I'm like, that's not the fucking guy that I used to party with in Cross Keys.
No, exactly. And I love that. That's perfect. That's,
oh yeah. No, well, I think we've all got like 18 different versions of ourselves between then and now. So, and it's fun to see how they all just kind of evolve a little bit. But here, let's jump all the way back to the beginning. So, I used the term extreme sports before we started recording. Was skydiving your first extreme sport, or did you venture into that via something else?
Yeah, skydiving was my first quote unquote extreme sport. It's funny. I really wouldn't even use that word to describe it. I realize that that's a word that like people use.
Sure.
But, I knew you would ask this and I thought about it actually. I remember when I was 18 driving in a car out to skydive Cross Keys with my friends who all were just turning 18 just to do our first jump. And all my friends were going to college. And I wasn't, and they were all talking about what schools they were going to go to. And somebody was like, "Well, what are you going to do, Will?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Well, maybe I'll be a skydiving instructor." And everybody just laughed. I hadn't even done my first jump yet, and they were like, "What do you think you should try it yet, or what at first, or whatever?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure I'll like it." And that was it, man. I did one jump. I immediately talked to John Edos, who owned Cross Keys at the time. And I don't know if I can say his name, whatever. Anyway, sure. I immediately, I started working there and started jumping right away. And that was it. Like I did not take a breath outside of skydiving for 7 years.
Now, what year was this?
Man, was that 2002?
That's what I would have guessed.
2001, 2002?
Because you and I met in beginning of 2004.
Right, exactly. So I'd already been going for a couple of years. I was probably doing AFF or soon to be doing AFF when we met.
Well, when we first met,
doing free flight coach.
Yeah, you were doing a lot of free flight. It was you and Selwyn Facey were just locked hip to hip.
You were there for me and Selwyn. Oh my god,
dude! My first time ever meeting you, I showed up at Cross Keys. I had never met you or anybody there, and I was walking out to look at the landing area. You and Selwyn were sprinting, having just landed, running back to the hangar, and both of you stopped just long enough to me to go, "Dude, do you have a rig we can borrow?" And my answer was, "There's a green Javelin and a black Vector hanging side by side on the rack." And you went, "Thanks." And both of you guys took off. You didn't ask what fucking parachutes. You didn't ask if there were cypresses, nothing. So I didn't even get introduced to you before you guys had already jumped my rigs. Both of them.
That is outstanding.
Yeah.
That is just fucking great, man. It's like, I love it. Like when I see people I haven't seen in the sport for years, everybody has some kind of weird ass story like that about me. And I love them all. It's great. It was such a good time in my life. And that was my approach to skydiving was, I felt like I was good at it and I was confident and I loved it and I loved flying different wings. And so now that you tell me that story, I do remember it.
Sure. Oh, it's fucking hilarious. That's how I met you is you running past me going, "Dude, have you got a rig we can borrow?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck yeah, go ahead, man." What?
Awesome, bro.
Well, and then
such a good story.
My opinion of you was because you busted your ass doing all the odd jobs around the drop zone, basically, I guess, just to keep working there and to be able to keep jumping. Were you getting free jumps for all the work you did?
Okay, so I was just telling somebody about this the other day. We had such a fucking sweet deal. John Edos basically said, "You do whatever I say, basically whenever I say, and I will pay you." We had the choice, like we could invoice him how we wanted. It was either $10 an hour or one jump an hour, and so it had incentive for him and had incentive for us because he obviously didn't want us to pay us the money.
Sure.
He would rather give us the jumps, which don't really cost anything. One fun jumper slot on an Otter doesn't make any difference when he's sending up 6 tandems,
Right.
So for him, he was happy to give us the one jump an hour, even though it had a value of much more than $10. And we didn't really want the money either. As long as we could eat, we just wanted to be. I would periodically go to Manifest call John, send an invoice, and they would print out like 40 tickets for me. And like, I don't know if you remember at Cross Keys at the time, the tickets didn't really cut between them.
Right.
So they would come out like in a big string, and I would take them and like do a dance like a ballerina, like through the hanger with like a string of 40 tickets, you know, and I would tear through those in a couple days, you know, 3-4 days.
Oh yeah.
No problem.
Well, you guys were fucking maniacs. I mean, you were going balls out all the time.
Yeah. I did 1,000 jumps a year, you know, several years in a row, you know.
Well, now
I did 18. Hold on a second. I think the most I ever did was packing for myself. I did one time 23 jumps in one day, always packing for myself.
Wow. That's a fuck. Well,
that was back. Yeah.
This is back when Cross Keys was the busiest goddamn drop zone on the planet, man.
Right.
There was literally no time a turbine engine wasn't spinning on that drop zone. It was just insane.
Yep.
So for those that weren't there back then, paint the picture of Cross Keys circa, 2003, 2004. What was that place like?
Oh my goodness. It's so hard to describe.
Right?
It was an outstanding mishmash of people from all different ages, all different walks of life, everybody that really was looking to step outside of normal and have, I would say, genuine experiences like with other people, and every facet of skydiving as well. You had crew dogs there, wingsuits were starting, you had free flyers, a really good free fly scene was building. You also had retirees who would come out and do like flat jumps, and tandems were going, but the tandem vibe was good. The instructors were positive. The students would hang out after and drink. I mean, it seemed like there was a party almost every night.
Pretty much.
And yeah, for sure. And we definitely partied hard too. I certainly did. Not everybody did, but I certainly did. And it was outstandingly positive vibe, but among the staff, and also this feeling of like really communal living, because we were all living on trailers in the woods back there.
Oh yeah.
It was such a special time and place in my life, and I feel like in the history of Cross Keys, and loads of people I think felt the same way.
Oh yeah.
So it was really cool.
I remember one particular bash we had, and there were a number of them back around the maxi pad, the woods across the parking lot.
Yeah.
And all of us, I mean, we all partied back then with a wide variety of chemical entertainment. Holy shit. And I remember one particular time we were all sitting around on one of the decks that someone had built around one of the trailers, just shooting the shit 4 hours, talking about nothing. Just, circular conversations that just kept going and going and going. And then we had that one night that I'm sure you'll remember, because I'm pretty sure you were there. It was the night of Sarge and the drinking contest when he fell off the fence. Oh
my God.
Right?
And and there were so many like priceless gems of people like Sarge that showed up and would be a huge personality and would show up, and like me and Selwyn, or nights like that where you had like so many. I mean, I don't know how much time you spent in the top house at the end of the street, but like that was another. Yeah, right. Exactly. Enough. Yeah. I mean, that was another haven of debauchery and party, but it was cool because like everything was super communal, from chemical entertainment to, relationships, physical or otherwise, with different people. There was this, and it wasn't like, I don't think it was like weird or dodgy. It was like everybody just kind of shared time and space and energy, and it was awesome.
I jokingly call it the most incestuous drop zone that I've ever been at, because it was 1 degree of separation. I mean, everybody slept with everybody.
Everybody, yep.
And it was so much fun. I mean,
it was fun, man.
And why not? Everybody kind of got to know everybody else's secrets. There was no hiding anything from anybody else, because either you'd slept with this person or the person next to him had slept with this person. It was
exactly.
And it was absolute, utter insanity. I remember, and I can't remember her name, which is kind of horrible, but Simeon had been dating this particular girl that I had a crush on, and she started flirting with me, the one that had her belly button pierced 4 times. Allison.
Allison, yes. Oh my goodness, I often think of her.
Oh, fucking hot as hell, and just oh my God.
Yeah.
So
she was trouble.
Yeah, and they had been dating, and then they stopped dating, and she was kind of flirting with me, but Sim and I were good friends, and so I went to Sim, and I'm like, dude, do you mind if I kind of go out? And I'm like, can I bang her, please? Is it cool with you? And he's like, thanks for asking, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's so funny, man. That is so funny. Yeah.
Oh, and the parties just got they got out of hand, but they didn't get out of hand in a scary way. They got out of hand, and you always knew everybody was going to sort themselves out.
Yeah.
Like everything was going to be okay. Sure. Like when we found Simeon wrapped around the telephone pole in his underwear, we knew he'd be okay the next day. He was going to be sorted. It was fine. And
so many of those too. Yeah.
Right. When Lauren Dem walked herself to the hospital that time, you remember that?
Yeah, I do. That was right in the middle of a tough moment for her.
Yeah.
Right after her mom.
For sure. Oh yeah. So, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good point. There were a lot of insanely wonderful moments at Cross Keys, but there were a lot of really tough times too.
Yeah.
Man, man, we saw some fucking tragedy in that place.
I know, man. That was, those years were so formative for me in so many ways. Everything from the what we already talked about, the sexuality, the chemicals, and then like you said, the tragedy. I mean, that shit. Even today, like when I have friends who are close to me who have people who die, I always kind of sit down next to them and I'm like, hey, look, this is something that I have experienced a lot, and I'm pretty familiar with how it works, and we should talk, and these are my experiences, and this is what I've learned from them, and and I'm happy with that. I've taken all that stuff and then it's become a tool for me that is applicable in my life to help other people.
Sure.
And so that's super cool.
Well, and being able to deal with raw grief like that, and to be so up close and personal, because most people will at some point in their lives lose people, obviously, but it's never never quite as in your face as it seemed to be back then, and it hasn't been for me since then. I mean, I've lost lots of friends. In fact, you and I were just speaking before we started about Rob Stanley. A fucking great friend, a wonderful guy, as unique as they possibly come, batshit crazy. And he should have never died. The guy was, going to live to be 180. That's how most people lose people. They get the telephone call, they get the message, so-and-so passed. But Cross Keys back then for us was, we watched it. It was
so many too, right? There were so many. And
such
they came fast and hard. Yeah, right, exactly. And people that you knew that because it's I don't know. Yeah, we were talking about the communal living. Everybody was sharing so much space there, so that even when it was somebody who you didn't really like that much,
right.
It still was like losing a brother.
Sure.
And it seemed like they all came hard and fast. And then, when Sarah went in that one just really, there was a wave of grief that went through the community when Sarah went in that I've never experienced like that. That was everybody simultaneously lost their daughter and their sister and their girlfriend, all in one person.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what she was to all of us.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I've often told the story when she was getting ready to do tandems, she came to me and was going with Jackson and I and Kim Worthington to go to the gym and train to get stronger, to be able to handle the flare for doing the tandems and stuff. And so we became pretty close when all that was going on. And that was when she would walk up and she'd give you the most amazing fucking hug. Just these long, almost more than lingering hug, and tell you sincerely, "Oh, I love you," and you knew it was real.
Yeah,
and it was a very unique experience to somebody. Everybody gives the little hug, "Love you, bro," but she would hold on to it and make sure you knew.
She had a minute.
She always had time like that to give to somebody, and never a negative thing to say about anybody. So that was a big hit.
That one, and there were people who, I don't know if you remember, but Norman Norman almost altogether stopped jumping for years after that. And I know he's going again, but he wasn't for years. And he never said to me, and I never heard him say or anybody, but for me, it was like he was gone after that, you know.
For sure.
And I think it just took that long. And I'm still not right about that one, you know. That's it's right up there with Stanley. It's probably more important with Stanley. You know, her and I had been together, you know, romantically that year, and I mean, she just had a way of drawing you in, and it still just feels like an unfinished story, you know.
Of course.
But yeah, right. That's and I mean, I remember, I think that's the only time I've ever just full on cried on Jump Run was on her Ash jump. I remember just like, I don't know who was flying, if it was, must have been Edo's, you know, and somebody just saying door, and like I remember just lifting up my goggles and just wiping the tears off my face. And yeah. Well,
I was down in Wildwood when it happened, and my first reaction was, all right, I'm done. You know, there's no way. You know, and I'm on the beach in the fetal position, just trying to hang on. Yeah. And they're like, dude, we gotta finish this day. Please help us out. And so I got back on that fucking Alouette helicopter to go do a jump. And I remember rolling off the strut of the Alouette, literally crying so hard as I'm doing a tandem that I couldn't even focus on the ground. Yeah, that was something else, man. That was something else. Yeah. It's I just got
goosebumps just thinking about it. You know.
Yeah. You know, they all hit pretty hard too. I mean, I know you were there. Just before I got there was Paul Rafferty. Granted, that was not a skydiving incident, but it was definitely a Cross Keys incident. Definitely Cross Keys. And he was the guy that hired me. So I showed up to Cross Keys going, "Hey, so where's Paul?" And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he's dead." What?
Oh man,
he's dead. Yeah. And then the next one was Kusky, and the funny thing about Kusky was I'd only been at the drop zone for about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. But it goes back to the communal living that you've mentioned. We became so close, so fucking fast that it was, you know, just normally. Oh yeah, it's a guy I met a couple of months ago. No, this was him, you know, and then Sarah and Ron, and then PJ, and all these fucking people. Jesus Christ.
PJ too, man. That was a tandem. That's so bad,
right?
Man. That's a really, really bad one.
It was kind of the Cross Keys curse, man. I almost look back at those and think that if we, with the highs that we had at that period of time, there were bound to be some crazy fucking lows, and there were.
Exactly.
There really were,
for sure. For sure.
Now you actually made yourself kind of infamous at Cross Keys for one particular jump. Yes, yeah, and you'll recognize this story right when I started. So I had the opportunity to sit down and interview Mr. Bill Booth, and
oh man, awesome.
So I brought up the same story to Bill, and this was the skyhook cutaway.
Yeah. What did he say about it?
Well, I told him, I'm like, so look, Bill, the story that I've been told is that publicly you'll say it's the worst thing you've ever seen, and privately you're like, fuck yeah. And his response was, absolutely fuck yeah.
Well, that's it. That's all I need then. If I've got Bill Booth's approval, I'm good.
Yeah, he confirmed that he still thinks it was the stupidest thing he's ever seen, but it was badass. But I want to know the story behind this, because I've heard a couple of different versions, but I know it was you and Selwyn who were famous at Cross Keys for just being the guys that are most likely to just do whatever it is. So how did this happen?
Yeah. All right. I think I have to set the scene a little bit too.
Please.
First of all, this is at a time when I was gaining rigging experience. I was gaining base jumping experience. I was gaining, I was packing reserves, even working on building harnesses. So I was really getting familiar and comfortable with rigging and packing. And as I say, I'm base jumping a lot too. So I'm pretty comfortable being low and doing what seemed like really high risk situation if you're skydiving. And I was 19 or 20 and probably thought I was invincible. Right. So it sets the stage. And then not that long before this, I'll tell you the whole story, the real truth, and, let fucking everybody else be the judge of how stupid it was. So not long before that, I think Selwyn and I had cause we were base jumping a lot, we were just doing
Sure.
I mean, we would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning and go jump off an antenna or a building or something,
Right.
you know. Even Jay Moletsky at the time was like, holy shit, like the bass scene in New Jersey is off the hook, you know. And he would plan his Jay Moletsky, who was traveling professionally for the PD team, would plan his travel to come through New Jersey to jump with me and Selwyn.
Awesome.
Because we were scouting and jumping so much. And he probably actually really saved our lives in sort of he wouldn't admit to this, but sort of secondhandly mentoring us and encouraging us probably to slow down and maybe wait for him to come back before we did a bunch more buildings and then do the buildings with him, you know,
right.
And then everybody won, you know,
right.
Anyway, so I was, you know, in this feeling increased knowledge and capability and comfort level. And not long before that, me and Selwyn had done a low pull competition in which I absolutely eviscerated him, you know, like totally crushed him. And made, you know, I don't think either of us were wearing altimeters. I think was the point of it too. Was like, let's just look at the ground and see who can go lower.
Jesus
which
Christ.
I know. Neither of us had cypresses. Like, I mean, this is not a good idea, kids. I don't recommend this, but I told you I'd be honest and tell the whole story.
Right.
So Selwyn had some like, you know, he's like, I lost that one. So like, I need to, you know, win the next one or whatever. And then we started Skyhook came out. We're, you know, playing around with it, and Cruzy was excited about it. We were all excited about it. And damn, I don't remember whose idea it was to pack one slider down, can you see the picture? I don't even remember. I don't even know if it was slider down. It might've actually been slider up.
I'm not sure.
I think it was.
I've heard stories both ways. I've heard slider up and slider down. All I know is that I watched it live, and it was the most ridiculously amazing thing I'd ever seen.
I feel fairly confident that it was slider up, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Cruzy would have done that, and I don't think I don't remember the slider being down like on the risers, you know, when I packed the reserve, and I know we didn't take it off. Pretty sure the toggles were going through the guide rings. I have to look at the picture. If I look at the picture in my head, I can almost see the slider up. Sure. But I could be misrecalling it. Anyway, so we did a couple chops, and we were like getting more comfortable with it. And like John Eddowes is like, let's do one super low at like 500 feet or whatever. And I'm going to be up there with the helicopter filming you guys. And like, you turn on the final and just one chops and then the other chops. And so Selwyn's like, all right, well, secretly between us, let's see who will go lower. You know what I mean? So like, he was hoping for round 2 of the low pull competition. Right. And he was flying a big canopy, like a 210 or something. So he was like cruising around in full flight, like no hands on the toggles, just hands on the cutaway handle, whatever, looking at his altimeter. And I was on something like bigger. So I had to fly in like full brakes to hang with him and couldn't really see my altimeter. So I was just looking at the ground and kind of waiting for him. And he like took it down. Eventually he was like, fuck it. I think he was like, fuck it at around like, let's call it politely 250 feet, you know? And I saw him chop. I had to let go of the brakes, go to full flight. I also wanted to turn around. I think I did like a toggle, you know, a flat toggle turn of about 180 degrees after that. And I was pretty low, man. I don't know how low I was. I know I was well lower than 200 feet, you know, well lower than that. I bet I was around like 180 when I hacked it. And I felt confident that it was going to be okay. I was also kind of over the corner of the pond. And if you recall correctly, I barely had time. I did flare a little bit, you know, but like the canopy wasn't completely pressurized, I don't think. So the flare didn't really do a ton. And so I do remember limping a little bit out of the landing area, my ankle being sore. And I did kind of like, you know, almost stood up like right next to the corner of the pond. And yeah, so when most people have seen, there's still that picture in circulation of me. I mean, super low, the canopy. Yeah, exactly. The canopy just pressurizing. And so yeah, Skyhook saved a life there for sure. I mean, admittedly, the operator of the system put himself deliberately in danger, you know what I mean? And again, not the way like I live now. And at the time, you know, I was in that young and arrogant, I probably had 2,000 jumps, thought I knew everything phase. And that would have been pre-Sarah, and that would have been pre-Ron, that would have been pre-PJ, and that would have been you know, it's at that really dangerous time for a skydiver when you have enough experience to be good and not enough experience to know how truly fucking dangerous it is and how quick and how sorrowful it is when you lose people. And
Well,
so
I watched that jump happen from the ground. It was funny because we had finished the day of jumping, and then everybody we were told what was going on because it was Egon was out from Relative Workshop. He's who brought the rig out for us to demo, and then Cola was out from PD. And I remember finishing up, and I think I was editing videos or something, and I put it away, and I rushed out to the landing area to be able to watch it with everybody else, and I ended up standing right next to Egon. Egon is watching as you guys are coming in, and he's super excited and jacked up and ready to see this amazing display of the Skyhook.
Shit.
And then he watches Selwyn cut away, and he's like, holy shit. And then he looks to you, and he's like, okay, don't cut away. Don't do it. Oh, fuck. And I'm standing right next to him, and this is the goddamn rep for the rig, and he's like, don't fucking do it. Holy shit. And all of us are just dumbfounded.
I mean, and that was like the beginning of my sponsorship as an athlete too, which is insane, because I went to get on sponsored by both of those companies, PD and Relative Workshop. And so it's one of those things, obviously probably the execution maybe wasn't as thought out as well as it could be. Although I'd like to make the argument that it was informed by gear knowledge. But, it's one of those things people were like, oh, fuck, and you shouldn't do that. But wow.
Right.
And that, that piece of equipment has definitely gone on to save lives. And then later, I did more test jumps with it in a more controlled setting, which were also super, super informative and super productive.
Sure. And we were lucky too in Cross Keys because that was kind of the place that everybody went with shit like that. I mean, when they first came out with the Micron, do you remember that? They brought it out to us and said, as long as you go with a licensed skydiver, fucking do whatever you want. And it was Jacko, Worthington, and I, them free flying the shit out of a Micron and me trying to keep up with them shooting video. Was fun as fuck. Yeah. We got to do all kinds
awesome.
and Edo's was taking us up in the Alouette just to do those jumps. So I was doing, free helicopter jumps all over the place.
Yeah. He liked that shit too.
Oh, dude, he was the biggest shit stirrer of us all. I mean, wasn't he the one that kind of made sure that everybody knew that the backhoe had keys in it when Kusky tied himself to the bucket?
I don't know. Maybe that might be a true story that he was the one that said, hey, there are keys in that backhoe. I mean, he did like to stir shit, but he also liked to have plausible deniability. So
of course.
Well, fuck.
Dude, I'd only been there for about a week when, as the new employee, Edo's asked me to return a van that they had used, I think, for somebody's bachelor party that went down to Atlantic City. And I climb into the van, and there's 1,000 fucking beer bottles in the van I got to take back to the rental company.
He loved to do shit like that, throw people under the bus. Like, could you just do this for me? And it's got like a dead hooker in and fucking half a pound of cocaine.
Exactly, man. Holy shit. Well,
exactly.
Were you there for when they saran wrapped the entire restaurant?
Yes.
All right.
And I mean, we played so many jokes on that restaurant too. And oh my God. Yeah. I felt bad for that guy actually.
Well, first you guys set up all the furniture up on the roof and then you saran wrapped all the furniture to the building and.
Oh God. Yeah.
Whose car got put up on whose car got put up on the picnic bench?
Oh my God. Jack Tempe. That was. He fucking lost it,
Of course he did. His car was fucking on a picnic bench, man. The shit
and he loved that car too.
The shit that went on in that place was just out. Well, what's the most outrageous Cross Keys memory you've got?
Oh man, hold on one second. It's hard to imagine. There's so many
right.
One that stands out. Hold on, let me just have a real good think about that.
Right.
Oh shit! I don't know if you know about the story of me and Selwyn getting arrested on the side of the road for just beating the shit out of each other. Boy.
So how I know I lived through Cross Keys is that sounds completely reasonable to me. That statement had nothing strange in it at all.
Exactly. We went out to dinner with John Eddowes, which is there's your first fucking mistake,
right.
And so he took both of us out and got both of us loaded, and we were at some comedy night, and he convinced Selwyn to run through the restaurant naked, which already was fucking bad enough.
Right.
Then like on the way home, he's like, I'm too drunk to drive. Which one of you guys is going to drive my car? Not giving a fuck about the fact that we're both shit faced. You know what I mean? So Selwyn's like, all right, mate, I'll take your car. Like, I'll make sure he gets home good and all that. And I mean, I was just drunk and unruly, and I like had rolled up like a Skydive magazine or Skydive the mag or something, and I'd rolled it up real tight to like a baton and was just slapping him in the side of the face with it while he drove drunk John Edo's car home, you know? So like at a certain point, he very calmly, like, you know how someone could switch to just being super calm? He very calmly looked at me and was like, Will, if you hit me with that one more time, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And so, like, of course I took that as like, you know, an invitation. So like he got going again, you know, and I rolled that fucking newspaper up real tight and just slammed it into the side of his face. And he like so calmly pulled over the car on the side of the road, like right on the side of the road, you know, put on the e-brake, put it in park, turned it off. It was like, get out of the car, Will. And you're like, he got out of the car and like, I got out of the car and we're on the side of the road now, you know, this car's driving by and whatever. And he kind of squares up at me, like puts his fists up, and I put my hands up, like out beside my face, palms, and I was like, "What are we doing?" And right as I said that, he just fucking punched me right in the face, you know. And I'm sure he broke my nose; it was bleeding all over the place. And then, you know, flash 5 minutes forward, he's sitting on top of me, just punching me in the head, you know. And the next thing I see is like a blue streak, and like it's a cop tackling Selwyn off of me, like pinning Selwyn down. Like another cop jumps on me. We're both in handcuffs. They put us in separate cars. They're like interrogating us, and we're
Oh my God.
And they're like, what the fuck's going on? You know, they thought we were like gonna kill each other. And I'm like, no, he's my best friend. We just beat the shit out of each other every now and then. They like take us back to the police station. You know, I'm like underage and drinking and whatever, and like anyway, Edo's had to come get us out of jail, and it was like a whole big thing. But you know, nothing, just like everything else that happened at Krusky's that time, nothing ever came of it. Like his influence wasn't important enough in the community that like he could just walk in there, check an underage drunk kid out of jail, and like get the other guy who was beating the shit out of him, and we'd all just go home happily. And me and Selwyn are just like best friends, like drinking and hanging out, like just had a good story.
It was
so like that's stuff like that happened all the time.
That drop zone just was such a staple of that entire neighborhood. I mean, Williamstown, if you were a skydiver, everybody, you know, all you had to do is say Cross Keys, and everybody knew, and you kind of got a little bit of extra slack. I remember when when Diego ran away one time, and he had a pink mohawk or a purple mohawk forever, and he ran away all the way down to the Wawa, like 2 fucking miles away, and I'm of course busy jumping all day, and Manifest gets a telephone call from somebody randomly going, hey, so we found this dog with a purple mohawk and we figured it must belong to the drop zone. And brought my dog back to the drop zone.
Exactly.
Because where else would a dog with a mohawk belong? It was just that bizarre.
I remember, like, we used to do demos over at the golf course, and this was years later. I don't know if you were there when Jimmy T was there or not, and he and I were team training and doing team landings, and at that point, I was a very proficient canopy pilot, and then flying with Jimmy T, who was world class and had been world class for a decade already, pushed me even to the next level, and so we were really into like object swooping, and we were doing demos over at the golf course, and there was a wedding, and there was a second floor balcony with like a row of street lights that was about 10 feet away from it. And the top of the street light was right at the level of the second floor balcony. And me and Jimmy did like a team landing, one after the other, ripping right between the balcony and those streetlights, like chest level, going through the balcony and those streetlights, and the whole marriage party was on the balcony. And like when we rolled out and like got on the rears and started to recover and see that balcony, and like people were like fucking diving, like they thought we were gonna hit them, you know. Right. And we came tearing through there, and then banked off and carved over the sand obstacle on the golf course and landed like right next to the green. And we were like, oh, that was awesome, and the video is awesome and all that stuff. And like the manager came out and like Jimmy was like, oh fuck, you know, like, and he like shook our hand and was like cool or whatever. And immediately he called John Edo's. We got back to the drop zone. We got reamed for that, you know, like, so it was also like skydiving stuff happening, and simultaneously it was like stuff that was cutting edge and really pushing the sport forward, and that was like making the drop zone management furious, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of like the beginning of like my end of my collaboration with Cross Keys was when the Canopy stuff started to get really they started to crack down really hard on, and rightfully so. It was right after Ron and Sarah, and they were trying to make meaningful change to have some safety, and I just wasn't having it. That I couldn't swoop, which is super selfish, obviously, but I was a kid.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think 2006 is when it faded for me, and that was, I mean, there'd been a fair amount of tragedy in the place, as well as, again, all the highs and all the lows. And I was actually still in California when PJ happened, and that's when I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah.
It just
PJ was.
Right. I mean, he was another one that PJ was always the first one. As soon as the weather got dodgy, he was the first one to go, nope, I'm down. He was always making, safe calls, bordering on, being super, super relaxed about, nope, I don't need to do this shit. This is fine. I'm not proving anything to anybody. So when that story came about, I was pretty, that one caught me off guard for sure. I didn't see that one coming at all. Like somebody like Kusky. When Kusky got introduced to me, Kim Worthington introduced Craig Kusky to me literally, hey, this is Craig. He's going to be the next guy to die on the drop zone.
Jesus Christ.
And he was.
Of course he was.
But Kusky was the only guy I knew that took a Cypress out of his rig because those pesky Cypress fires kept getting in his way. He had fucking 4 or 5 fires.
Yeah, that was a mess too.
Right.
And he was also in a bad spot with drinking and using. And
yeah, dude.
That was
June 22nd, 2004 will be etched into my mind literally beyond my death, because June 21st, my birthday, I was supposed to be the most fucked up at the party. And I'd only been at Cross Keys for a couple of months. So it was trash the new guy. Say. Of course you do. And so it was heavy amounts of everything you could think of and lots of chemical entertainment. And the goal, of course, was fuck up the birthday boy so that he falls asleep with his shoes on. All bets are off.
Right.
But it wasn't me. I managed somehow about 3 o'clock in the morning to make it back to my trailer and lock the fucking door so that none of you animals could get near me. And I come out about fucking 9:30 or 10 o'clock the next morning, and Kusky's passed out on the back deck. And this was it was like a Wednesday. So
I forgot about this. When you asked about the craziest story, this is actually the craziest story. But it's also my favorite.
Go right ahead, please.
This is I honestly can say to this day, I have mixed feelings about this story only because it's simultaneously so joyful for me because it was the hardest I've ever laughed.
Right.
And it's also so sad for me because I knew that I would never see anything funnier in my life again. Right. So it was the best moment, but also I knew that I would never reach that level of comedy again in my life.
It was very bittersweet.
So yeah, right. Exactly. And I also didn't get along with Kusky. He used to give me so much shit. I don't know why. If it was because I was young or talented or what, but he always used to fuck with me. And so I did not like that guy as much as everybody else did. Right. Anyway, and I remember him just weeks before he died being like, you're going to go in, Will. Every time I've said that to somebody, I was always right, blah, 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 blah. And then he went in and I was like, fuck you. Anyway, So anyway, he passed out. He was supposed to help me and Selwyn and maybe even Doug Urban work on some project for John that morning. And he fucking passed out on the back deck overlooking the landing area, not just on the deck, but with his back in the middle of a step. There was a step in the middle of the deck. And he fell asleep in the most impossibly uncomfortable. I mean, fell asleep is not the word. He was passed the fuck out.
He was
unconscious. Had, of course, he had his shoes on and some shorts, and that was it. And I don't know. I think he had done something to Selwyn recently as well. He had punched Selwyn or something, and he didn't have the relationship with Selwyn that I did, where we could punch each other and it was fine.
Right.
So Selwyn was pissed at him as well. And let me tell you something. Do not fuck with Selwyn.
Right.
Whatever you do, don't fuck with Selwyn. So Selwyn goes at it nice and slow. First he gets some marker. He's drawing on him. Then somebody's like, I got some scissors. And Selwyn cuts like a surgeon, up the legs of his shorts. And cut. I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing. Cut the shorts. I know. Cut the shorts off of him. Right. And then kind of like a magician pulling a tablecloth out from under glasses, just yanks it out from underneath him. And so then Kusky's laying there just naked, covered in marker, and I think somebody put nail polish on him.
Somebody put nail polish on the tip of his dick.
Dick, yeah.
You know what the funniest
bad.
part about that one, though, was? When Selwyn did the magic trick and yanked his shorts out from under him, literally everybody in that crowd took a second to pause and went, I didn't think his dick could be that big. You can see it. It was an absolute pause in the entire thing. It's, wow, he's carrying a bit of a hog.
It was like,
there.
okay.
And for those that did not know Craig Kusky was, for lack of a better way to put it, a dirtbag. He had a big heart, and I was a fan of Kusky because he was amazing with my daughter, but he was a dirtbag. I mean, this is a guy that would wear shorts that hadn't been washed in a fucking month, and his idea of a shower was diving in the swimming pool. You know. Yeah,
right, or the pond.
Yeah, Kusky was a unique guy, definitely a unique guy.
He was a unique guy.
Yeah, he was an odd duck. Anyway, go ahead.
And he was not an easy person to get along with all the time either. Anyway, so then he's naked. Then he's got nail polish on his dick. And then I remember distinctly Toast fucking, oh my God. He was the one that goes, I got some peanut butter. And, you know, and like Selwyn's fucking eyes turned to like saucers and his gaze fixed on Toast. And he was like, go get it. You know what I mean? And like Toast is like, okay, I'll put it in the microwave first so it pours out easy, you know? And so he comes back with like a warm jar of peanut butter. I cannot believe I'm telling this story in like a public forum.
That's awesome.
So then there's this melted peanut butter soup, whatever, and Selwyn starts pouring it on Craig's dick, you know? And the dog, somebody goes and gets Marley. Drops on dog.
Oh, Marley, and this was the nastiest fucking dog you have ever
Poor
seen.
Marley. Poor Marley. And so he pours it on Craig's dick, and like, you know, Marley's like, fuck that. And somebody's like, you gotta hold on, I can't stop laughing. I'm sorry. Somebody's like, you gotta prime the dog first. And so someone takes like a spoon, dips it in the peanut butter, and like Marley starts licking the spoon, and he just leads her over to Craig's balls.
Yep.
And then just pours a bunch of peanut butter on his balls, and she just started to clean it up. You know what I mean? And I remember Danny Kuhn going, Marley, no. And the fucking absolute cacophony of laughter. I mean, we must have been 30 people. It was the entire staff, Cruzy, all the Manifest people, everybody. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning on a work day. There
and
were
customers
filling out waivers. Yes, there were tandems filling out waivers like on the other side of the building. And everybody's just looking at this fucking spectacle, and everybody's laughing. I remember my stomach hurting so bad from laughter. And
oh God, yes.
And then he started to get like hard and everything. And then somebody started yelling, Craig, wake up, you're having a nightmare. You know what I mean? Yeah, I remember him waking up and like lifting his head and looking between his legs and seeing Marley.
Well, and if my memory serves me correctly, he looks down, sees Marley still going to town, and he just kind of goes, huh, and then drops his head back down on the deck.
Exactly.
Oh my.
And then like at some point I think somebody kind of intervened to stop the spectacle before things got really out of hand. And I remember him like getting up and running into the hangar, and there was this scale there that we weighed tandem students on. He was buck naked, and there were tandem students in there, and he stood up and put his hands up and went, I made weight, you know, like he was a boxer getting ready for a fight. And like me and Pancake and somebody else like wrestling him to put a jumpsuit, like a student jumpsuit on him, just so he wouldn't be running around naked.
Yep.
And we put a jumpsuit on. Maybe it was you. I don't remember who it was, me and somebody else. And getting a jumpsuit on him, and then him just passing out again. And just, I was like, at the same time, my life had reached its pinnacle of like seeing the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Oh, yeah. And also like, it was the last time I would ever laugh so hard. So I know there's video of that around, but I still haven't seen it. You know,
people, some out of some misplaced respect won't let that video air. I know
that's such bullshit. that is such bullshit. Like anybody who thinks that's respecting Craig did not know Craig.
Right. Exactly. That's my thing is, I mean, come on. I mean, because he ended up getting out of that jumpsuit, and because it was my day off the next day, I made damn sure I had June 22nd off so I could recover from what I assumed would be the roughest night of my life. It turned out to be the roughest night of his life. Yeah. So I'm at the pool. They had revamped the pool, and so we've got that above ground pool, and everybody's relaxing. And Craig is laying on a raft in the water, still buck naked, and somebody actually had to throw a towel over his fucking balls, so nobody had to sit and stare at Craig's balls the entire time.
I mean, only fucking Cross Keys. Like only at Cross Keys could you have tandem students landing and like a drunk naked guy who just got molested by a dog floating passed out on the surface of a pool, right? Like, and everybody just thinking that was hilarious. Like,
well, it was kind of funny because I think Marley passed away a couple of months later, and I just naturally assumed it was from shame.
Exactly.
It was just shame from having done that. Because I remember looking at Marley, and granted, I was still recovering from the chemical entertainment from the night before, and I remember looking at Marley as the peanut butter is happening, and you could just see this twinge of regret in the dog's eyes, like, why the fuck did you make me do this? Like, I can't resist peanut butter. Oh my God. That was still to this day. I mean, it's a joke, and people say they know somebody that saw somebody. We have there's video and photos of it out there.
And high resolution stills for sure. That happened. That's not like, and there's so many things like that happened at Cross Keys. I mean, that should be a movie. I know you wrote a book. I haven't read the book, but I often think about writing a book too, just from like the amount of shit, like, that was so unbelievable. And whenever On the Road by Jack Kerouac, right? Like I saw the movie, read the book, I don't know. It just seemed like it's like a calm Tuesday at Cross Keys, most of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm like, people are like, oh my God, like, and like, I was like, well, whatever. Like, you want to see some shit, you should go back to Cross Keys circa 2002 to 2005. Right?
Oh, yeah, man. Well, when I took the job at Cross Keys, I took it out in Las Vegas. I left the normal job that I had in Las Vegas, because Cross Keys was by far the busiest drop zone in the U.S., if not the world, at the time. Yeah. So I'd found out about it and had talked to people at the drop zone and been offered the job. And I took the job at Cross Keys, and this will make you laugh, because it was the responsible choice. Right? To go make money.
Shit. You thought you were like settling down. Oh,
absolutely.
Man.
I'm like, all right, I'm going to go be a professional skydiver now, and this is the busiest drop zone, and it's going to be, high and tight, and I'm going to bang this shit out. Good for
me, right?
Absolutely. And cut to a month and a half into Cross Keys, and I'm sitting in the pee pit tripping balls going, this was the responsible choice? Somebody just showed me the secret of the pee pit, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Holy shit.
Right. Yeah. I spent some time tripping in the peas myself, my friend. Yeah.
What a spot, man. That drop zone just, sure. It's funny. I've had Norman on here. Oh man, I got to listen to his. Oh dude, it's wonderful. Yeah. Well, Norman, he's such a storyteller, and so you listen to Norman talk, and we talked quite a bit about Sarah, and she had given him a Bible before she had passed away, and he kept forever. And then it finally parted ways with him. And so he talks fondly about that kind of stuff. But so I talked to Norman. I believe it or not, coming up on the podcast is going to be Miss Kim Turnbull, previously Worthington.
Oh man, that's going to be a good one too.
Oh yeah, I'm going to love talking to her. I tried to get Mr. Jackson to come on. He's having nothing of it. He wants nothing to do with this shit. Can't blame him.
Of course he doesn't.
No, but lots of Cross Keys alumni, that have been back there, and there were such amazing people back there. I mean, that I always look back on fondly, even those that are gone. I mean, Liz Mann was a close friend of everybody's. And what an amazing human being she was. Every time I think about her, I can't help but smile. Same as Rob Stanley. You just you just can't not grin, A lot of bittersweet stuff, but a lot of amazing stuff. Now, when you decided to transition away from Cross Keys, where did you end up going from there?
So, right after Sarah died, not right after, I guess another season, but, the following year I met Angela, who's my wife currently. And I was pretty traumatized by having lost Sarah so quickly. And we had been together romantically, and we had talked about just before she died, like we had spent another night together and said like, let's get serious about this and let's make this happen. I don't usually talk to that about people. It was 4 days before she died, right before I went off to Wildwood. It was like, okay, let's make this happen. And, had exchanged some pretty important feelings or whatever. And, and then she was gone.
Sure.
And, so when I met Angela, I was like, okay, she's awesome. And I was like, will you marry me? I was like, right away. I think this fear of having lost Sarah so fast, I snapped up Angela as quick as I could, and we got married, and we moved. And then I was like getting into it with John all the time about landings and swooping, and I was like, fuck this. And so I started just organizing on loads of different drop zones and didn't really have a home drop zone anymore. Right. And then me and Angela, and I did that for a year or two, and it was awesome. I loved it so much. Of course. Celebrity status, and I was traveling around and swooping and jumping and doing whatever I wanted, and that was awesome. Then we moved to France. When we moved to France, I went from like being full on celebrity, like the Skyhook guy, sponsored and everything, and never paying for jumps. And everybody knew who I was on the whole East Coast. Every drop zone I went to, people were like, oh man, like, what can I jump with you? What are you doing? Like, what do you think about this landing? To like being in France. I worked on in Spain in Imperia Brava for a minute with like doing a little bit with Babylon, but like not really. And then I was like, there's like a local DZ close to my house where I live in France that was super expensive, tiny Cessna operation. The staff were kind of douchebags. Nobody really knew that much about what was going on. Like I was jumping RDS. They had never seen it. Like they thought I was having like reserve fires or something. Like they're like, what the fuck is that? Like, you know what I mean? Right. And so, and it was like 38 euros a jump, which at the time was like $50. So I had been getting free celebrity jumping all over the country, and now I'm supposed to be paying $50 a jump for a crappy drop zone jumping by myself, essentially. Right. So I just kind of was like, ugh, not into it. And I started base jumping more and slowly stopped skydiving. And then, not just like going from being free jumps and celebrity status to like paying expensive jumps and being a nobody. I was like, fuck that. I was probably too arrogant for it at the time. Sure. So then I was base jumping a bunch, and then when the kids were born, I was jumping a lot by myself. And then the end of my serious base jumping career, I was like in Lauterbrunnen, and my wife was like in the landing area with both of our kids. No, she had Red Sky, who's my daughter. It was like a year old or something, and she was pregnant with Livingston, who would be born shortly after. And I was like standing on this cliff, looking at my family, just being like, "Fuck, that's too much pressure." You know what I mean? Like it's this weird juju having your whole family there waiting for you. And then I just was like, this moment, this isn't that right for me. And so I kind of slowly stepped back from it, stepped into like a family role, and did a lot more family stuff, and had several years where I wasn't really actively doing any, sort of mentally challenging sports, and then got back into rock climbing when my kids were a little older, and have been avidly rock climbing for years now. And I've done like several 513s this year, a couple 512s. So I climb at a pretty good level. Then recently got back in, started highlining, which is fuck. You think base jumping's scary? Highlining is like an hour-long base jump. Base jumping you just commit once. You step off and then you survive. Highlining you commit every single second, every single step. So I recently got into that, and now kind of reopening the door of base jumping again. I think in a sort of a better place. My kids are a little older. I'm feeling a little bit more calm, a little more centered, and all the exposure from rock climbing and highlining has kind of made me feel pretty comfortable with that. So a full sort of detour, and then back to whatever.
Sure. Well, and I've tried to explain to my friends that don't skydive or really aren't into the quote unquote extreme stuff, that climbing always scared me so much more. And I did one particular route that will always stand out with a skydiver friend of mine, who about halfway up a 5-pitch trad route wasn't sure he was still on the route. Thought he might be lost, and that was when the saying "the only way down is up" kicked in, and that's a level of sustained fear people don't understand.
Exactly.
Skydiving is this quick burst, and so you don't even have to really learn to handle the fear that much because it passes so quickly. But when you've got this sustained fear, man, you've really got to climb into your own head and figure out how to calm down that fight or flight mentality. And climbing is fucking intense, and I've done slacklining, but I've not done any highlining. Slacklining, just the idea of getting my balls smacked by the line is enough to scare me. So being really high up, fuck no.
Yeah. It's like one thing I think you go in levels of fears. Like you said, skydiving, I think we all get pretty comfortable pretty quick, and you don't really have to handle that fear that much. You make one commitment and then you enjoy it. Base jumping kind of multiplies that by a factor of 10, the feeling of fear, and you take that to climbing. It gets a little more intense. I love climbing, and I actually love falling. I'm like known in France where I climb as the guy who like laughs and smiles while he falls because like, I've had sends where I finish a route, and it's great. It's like the climbing orgasm, right? But like I've had falls that feel way more intense and way more joyful than the actual send. You know what I mean? And then so you take that and you go to highlining next, and highlining, it multiplies the fear of base jumping by maybe 100. Because it's actually much safer. Very few fatalities since the beginning of highlining. 3, maybe 4. That's it. How many base jumping fatalities we have this year?
Oh, God. Right?
But, sit on a 2-inch wide piece of webbing and tell your brain that it's safe. Your brain's like, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it takes a sustained, you're sitting, you're bathing in the fear and focusing. And so that multiplied fear effect, I think, gives it a multiplied sort of feeling of zen as well, which a lot of base jumpers, a lot of skydivers, describe the sport much more as like giving some peace and some zen than anything else. And highlining is just the continuation of that for me.
Sure.
I think eventually I probably would like to do some baselining or something like that, but we'll see how it goes.
Sure. Well, there's definitely levels to it, and of course everybody reaches their particular limit, or they don't. I did a magazine interview with Noah, base jumper and wingsuiter, a long time ago, and asked him, I'm like, so, do you have a line that you won't cross? And he's like, no, I haven't found it yet. And I'm like, how do you feel about that? And he's like, it makes me nervous that it doesn't make me nervous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. I understand that. I get where you're coming from, that you just there's not a line out there you've yet found that you're not willing to cross. For me personally, I was lucky. That line got drawn in the sand with me when I was going to become a dad, because I was very early in my skydiving career. So I still thought skydiving was crazy dangerous, and hadn't really become a true skydiver yet. And the decision to never base jump just kind of became that decision. I never second guessed it.
Wow, you never base jumped, huh?
Never made a base jump, man. I filmed them. I've watched the mayhem off of Bridge Day. I've seen all that stuff, and I've seen, just like before I got my tandem rating, I had seen enough of them go badly that I'm like, ooh, no, I don't think that's for me.
Oh, you gotta do it, bro. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. You know what I mean? And like, anyway, I think, speaking of lines and base jumping, and it's funny how that sport has changed and evolved, and how stepping back from it, like, I don't know. It's just it's so unusual that in a sport that like skill and capacity and ability does not seem to protect people from dying. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the better that you are, and this can be true somewhat in climbing, but not really, not at the same level as base jumping. Like, in fact, the better that you are and the more skilled you are, the more likely that you are to go in. When Dean Potter went in, that was just like, what the fuck is wrong with this sport?
Nobody expected it.
That's like Michael Jordan, dying in a basketball game. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it just doesn't. It's
well,
not like
that's the thing is for quite a while there, especially as wingsuit proximity flying really gained a lot of traction, you became the best because the best died.
Yeah, exactly. Which, that's been true for a long time. All the way back, if you remember, Dwayne Weston, all these guys. It's always like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and all the pioneers. I mean, Patrick Tigardon and all these guys that were, were the pioneers of this shit. Well, they were pushing those limits just like the rest of these guys are. I talked to a couple of hardcore mountain base jumping wingsuit guys, Nick and Matt Munting, that are out just doing all these badass things, and to my relief, they're like, yeah, so we've kind of gotten away from the proximity stuff, and we're still doing stuff close to the mountains, but not like this. And so for somebody like me that doesn't base jump, that's a huge relief, because I've got lots of friends that do that shit, just like you, I've said goodbye to a lot of friends, so it's kind of nice to go, oh, you're not doing that stuff anymore. Okay, good.
Yeah, well, because at a certain point, like I think it's been well documented now that you can fly a wingsuit as close to the ground as you want for as long as you want. As long as the terrain supports the flight that you're going, there's infinite possibilities. And the capacity is clearly nearly unlimited, except for if you actually touch.
Sure.
So I think we have demonstrated that that's a capable thing. So like pushing it further.
Yeah,
what do you want to do? I mean, guys have flown underground now. There is no pushing it further unless we dig a fucking hole straight through the earth and somebody flies across.
Exactly.
I mean, right. So now it's got to be like more about like the flight potential, and what is the actual flight?
Well, fuck. Now I see these guys, bailing off the hill and flying down the train and then pitching up away from the train, flaring and doing acrobatics in their flare, and then going back into full flight. It's just it's absolutely aerobatic flight. It's amazing, and it's far enough away from the terrain that I can take a deep breath, because personally, at least for me, I'm not impressed when I see the bush brushing past somebody's shoulder. I'm horrified. Because
I mean, it appeals to something in me of this, like, I don't know. It reminds me of when I was object swooping a lot, and there's something about the feeling of control and proficiency that is profoundly appealing to me. And so seeing somebody fly like that, I'm like, okay, that guy's locked in. But it's like I said, I think like where do you want to go with it? Like what, you can't do any deeper lines. I mean, you got Scotty Bob fucking basically scraping his chest strap on a mountain trail for 2 minutes, like what do we want? Like, you know what I mean? So
there was a huge amount of freedom for somebody like me who woke up one morning and went, oh, I'm never going to be the best at this or that. I'm never going to be the best swooper. I'm never going to be the best free flyer. I'm certainly never going to be a badass base jumper. And there's a huge amount of freedom in just going, oh, I got nobody to impress. I fly my little Velo 96 and I have fun with my fucking 270s, and that's it. No one's ever going to go ooh and ah with my swooping, which is amazing. Because it allows me that freedom. So walking away from it going, I don't need to be the best. I'm never going to be a champion. Any of that stuff is kind of nice. It really is.
Yeah. I think that's part of how I kind of really started to kill my enjoyment of it, was like, I did think I could be a world-class athlete. And I think at a time and a place I was,
Sure.
I was world-class in swooping and in free-flying. And there is a pressure, at least in my head. And there is pressure that comes with that. And I felt a tremendous amount of pressure, and it didn't make my skydiving very joyful. And that's why now when I jump, it is so fucking amazing, because I have zero pressure, and I haven't jumped in years. So when I jump, it's just pure joy, and it's like totally automatic. The instinct to fly, to fly a canopy, to fly my body, it comes back immediately, and I feel almost completely as proficient as I was. I'm sure I'm not, but I feel that way. But it's all joy. It's all pure joy. There's no stress. When Liz died and we were doing, I did like 20 jumps that weekend. I hadn't jumped in like 4 years. I did like 20 jumps that weekend, and doing high level free flying, and just felt great about it. And it was so nice. I'm here in Moab, base jumping now again. And I did my first jump in years, since probably 2014 was my last base jump. And, no, 2016 maybe. Anyway, was my last base jump. And, immediately felt 100% comfortable. Like I jumped canopy open. My brother, who actually static lined me or PCA'd me, was like up there, and I knew I was pretty close. I just yelled up like, I'm good, bro. Thanks. And just flew immediately. The instinct of flying the canopy, I felt like I had done it yesterday. And my accuracy was good, and my landing, I stood up my landing,
Sure.
like and so yeah, it's amazing.
Well, it was the same
amazing
thing
sport.
when I got back into jumping, because I took about 4 years off and wasn't jumping at all,
Right.
because I transitioned into flying
Yeah.
planes for a long, long time.
Right.
And I'd always been
Yeah.
a working skydiver. I mean, I started shooting video, then I chucked drogues, and then I did AFF, and that's just what I did. And so I took those 4 years off, and I decided I'll jump again if the idea ever really starts to appeal to me. And a buddy of mine, after about 4 years, had been, hey, you're not flying these next few loads. You should come make a jump with me. And the idea actually made me nervous. I'm like, ooh, skydive, holy shit. And I went and jumped. And for the first time in literally 15 years, I made a fun jump. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just a fun jumper. I'm an average.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man.
Awesome.
I'm an average free flyer. I'm an average canopy pilot. Nobody's ever going to be impressed with anything other than the fact that I'm having a fucking blast.
Exactly, bro.
And that's all that matters.
And it's great, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's so great. Honestly, the one thing, like, periodically I'll toy with the idea of getting current again, and usually I'll jump and I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking get current again. It's gonna be awesome.
Right.
And like the one thing that really, really sticks in my mind that I have never done, and that is the only stone that is unturned for me in skydiving, is tandems. I have never been a tandem instructor, and I feel like I would love to just be like the UPS guy, like just hauling fucking loads of useless meat on the first jump, and like enjoying that reaction of the canopy opening and taking people or you don't know on their first jump. I think is probably a pretty special thing, and that's definitely in my mind.
Oh, I think it definitely
like,
in the headspace that you're in nowadays, especially because of all the yoga and stuff. Like when I started doing tandems, I did not want to become a tandem master. The idea terrified me. I'd see too many of them go bad, and the pressure of having another life in your hands and all that stuff. And it took me about 100 tandems before I took this one guy on a tandem, and I watched his entire demeanor change from the time that we got suited up to the time that we landed. And it became oh my God, I did that. I gave that to this person. And now if you're to ask me, my favorite way I ever made jumps was tandems, because I shared so many special experiences. And although people will never remember my name and wouldn't be able to spot me in a crowd, they'll always remember that little gift that I gave them. I think you'd fucking dig that all to hell, especially, being a yoga instructor and all that. Now it's kind of like a yoga mentality, but in fast forward, boom, here you go.
Exactly.
Here's some fucking Zen for you in 60 seconds.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think you'd dig it, man. And it's a challenge.
I mean, I loved AFF. And that's the same thing. Actually, AFF's a challenge. I loved AFF for all those reasons, the sharing and the giving somebody something cool and new. And yeah, I just never did tandems because I really wanted to always be flying my own canopy, but now I don't give a shit. So
right.
I don't know. We'll see. It could be cool. Could be a fun little way to.
It's an entertaining way to do it, and it's also a very cool way to start to learn people in a big way. Obviously, if you're doing AFF, they've already kind of got the desire to make that jump, but it's really cool to take someone who maybe this tandem was a birthday gift for them, and they're really not sure about this shit, and to have to try and figure out that mental puzzle to make this particular person comfortable with the fact that you're going to potentially try and kill them.
Exactly.
It's an amazing thing to watch them face this ridiculous fear, overcome it, and then not only just face the fear, but turn out to have a shitload of fun. It's a really cool thing. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
So now, speaking of, how did you transition into the yoga thing?
All right. So, I mean, well, that's a whole other thing. Is like I'm pretty. If you talk to people about me and cross keys, like, one of a few things will come up, and usually it's like either the skyhook jump. Right. If I'm lucky, maybe it'll be some kind of cool skydiving related thing, but probably not. Or it will be something related. It'll be something related to like me drinking or taking drugs. Right. So, so the transition into yoga happened for me because, like, hold on, let me just think now. 9 years ago, I had to take a long, hard look at my consumption of alcohol and drugs. Sure. And decided that it was unhealthy. My relationship with alcohol and drugs was unhealthy, and made the choice to get sober. And so I have been sober for I'll have be 9 years completely sober, no drugs, no alcohol.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. In about 3 weeks. It'll be September 29th. So maybe not even 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I'll have fully 9 years,
That's
which is
cool.
a whole other, that's a whole other TED talk we could do. But
Right.
anyway, exactly. So that kind of like started me on this other path of like self exploration. And as a part of that, I ventured, into, as I mentioned, climbing, but also into yoga, started practicing yoga, found that like I really loved it. And then I loved the stillness and the movement and the concentration and the meditation. And I think all the things that people love about yoga. So I started practicing myself. And then we had some sort of situations at home that were going to require that, like, for years I was a stay-at-home dad, which was awesome. But then we came up on some situations at home which were going to require that I get a job. And at that point in my life, I was like, I am not doing something that I don't love. Like, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? And I had a very, very close friend who was a yoga instructor, and she was like, well, like, you know what you need to do, right? I was like, no. She was like, you need to become a yoga instructor. I was like, get out of here. You know what I mean? And so she kind of convinced me to do a training. I did my first training. I started working right away. Honestly, I really believe strongly. And when I do my CVs today, I still put my skydiving stuff on there.
Sure.
And I really believe that, like, the amount of time that I spent free flying, teaching, doing AFF, because it's the same exact thing. It's proprioception, it's focus, it's body positioning and movement and control.
Sure.
And I really feel like all of that gave me, when I started teaching, I think I started with like a level of comfort and proficiency as a teacher that a lot of other yoga teachers don't have for years of teaching.
Sure.
And so I got trained and I started teaching right away. I've been doing that for several years now, 3 years. And now I teach about 16 hours a week.
Nice.
Which is a pretty full week, and it's great. I set myself up. I work 3-4 days a week, teach 16 hours a week, and I make, really good money in Geneva. And, I feel really, really fortunate. Just like skydiving, kind of fell into it and then committed myself to it hard and love it. Love it.
Nice.
Super, super happy.
So you're in an area of France that's close to Geneva, Switzerland?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm just outside. Like, I live in a village called Chennai, but it's a tiny little village in the French countryside. And in fact, the closest thing to where I live is Geneva, Switzerland.
That's super cool. I mean, especially considering you and I met in Jersey.
I know.
It's bizarre the path that it took, right? I mean, because none of that insanity that went on in Cross Keys and whatever led us to Cross Keys, none of this would have happened if it weren't for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think about
exactly,
that all the time.
And that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah, man, for sure. That's definitely what led us all to where we are. Yeah, if you're ever through Switzerland, you need to come hit me up, bro.
Oh, always.
For sure.
Oh no, without a doubt.
Cool,
it's
cool.
it's looking back on those times, it's kind of funny because as soon as we get going on stuff like Cross Keys, that all just comes flooding back. It's just this insane wave of holy shit, did we survive that? Did we actually do that?
That's it.
I thought I dreamed that shit.
Yeah, some of it, dude. Some of it for sure. I think back and I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah. No, I can't even count how many times that I look back and go, oh yeah, I shouldn't still be here. No way. No way.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't give back those experiences for anything, good and bad. I wouldn't give back any of the negative because that means that I lose some of the positive as well.
That's it.
So for everybody that's listening, we've got first-time skydivers, we've got long-time skydivers, and I generally ask my guests this: what kind of advice would you give to those that are just getting into the sport, and what advice would you give to those that have been in the sport a long time and they're maybe getting burned out, maybe looking for to find a new kind of joy in the sport? What advice do you give to them?
That's a great question. I have a couple things that for sure I've been thinking about because, like I said, I'm back here kind of base jumping and skydiving again as I haven't been in years. Sure. And I'm really impressed. You probably know my brother, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
And he's getting married to, absolutely a world-class skydiver, Katie. I don't want to say their names because whatever. But so Matt and Katie, she's going
to be on my podcast here real soon as well.
Get out of here. You're going to talk to Katie Henson? That's hilarious.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. So anyway, I'll brag on her for just a minute. First of all, she's an amazing human being.
Yes.
Second of all, being here and putting myself in risk situations with them, they have, both of them, Matt and Katie, but have this, hold on, how do I say it? Like, tremendously aware, tremendously well informed, and tremendously attentive decision-making process before they put themselves in risk situations. And that includes skydiving as much as base jumping. I think Katie Henson is just as, from what I see, she pays just as much attention to detail in her skydiving risk assumption as she does in her base jumping risk assumption.
Sure.
And so I guess for both, people who are just starting and for people who are going, I think that's really, really important. I've been really impressed by Katie because I didn't live that way. I got to, I was like, whatever, it's going to be fine.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that's not how you stay alive in skydiving for a long time.
Right.
You stay alive in skydiving and especially in base jumping for a long time, which, base jumping has changed now. You can have 800, 1,000 jumps. Before you couldn't,
Sure.
200 jumps was like, holy shit, and it is by continuing to stay, not just vigilant. That makes it sound like you're not having fun.
Right.
But it's like studious. You know what I mean?
Sure.
She's paying attention. She's paying attention to what's happening, to what's going on around her in terms of drop zones, different drop zone safety, what people are doing on loads, and it's staying informed in terms of gear and stuff like that. And she's studious about what is happening, and she's aware, and she makes good and astute decisions based on that studious information.
Sure.
And so that's what I would say to people who are starting or to people who are still going. It's like, don't get complacent, but stay aware. And and that doesn't mean it's not fun. That just means you're being realistic, and you can have longevity in the sport. And I think one more thing for people who have been going for years, who are losing that feeling, looking for that new enjoyment. I think it's like just what me and you said, like, step back a little bit, for, especially you mentioned doing a fun jump for the first time in 16 years. Like, that's crucial. So many guys just do tandems,
Sure.
and don't ever fun jump. Like, I'm sorry, that's not the way you're going to enjoy skydiving.
No.
That's not going to work for you, or anybody. So get out there and get your rig on and enjoy it. Or if you're like a high level flyer and you're hating it, which is what I was doing, crushing it, flying really great, but also feeling shitty about it, do something different. Get
Sure.
a tandem rating. Go do hop and pops. Go do to the person with the least experience on the drop zone and do a flat 2-way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just laugh the whole way down. Right. Like, change it up and really make it about fun. Like, it's supposed to be fun. And if you lose that fun, you're just wasting your time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as soon as you lose the joy in something like skydiving, why on earth would you do something as potentially dangerous as we've chosen to do with basically our entire lives if you don't have a true enjoyment of it? Not necessarily a passion, because passion isn't always a good thing. Passion can sometimes just be insanity. It's got to be a joy of it. And now I'll go out and make those goofy jumps when I go up to altitude and literally just, all right, you grab here, I'll grab there, we'll roll this way and see what happens. And you just fucking laugh the entire skydive,
Exactly.
And that's the big benefit too, you look back at the career 11,000 jumps later, and those 11,000 jumps only allowed me to do one thing, and that's to giggle my ass off all the way down on this skydive because I was vigilant enough to make sure that my equipment's up to par and that I know what the fuck is going on. So now the safety aspect of it is there. I've done my due diligence, and now I just get to laugh. And it's fucking
that's it.
Yeah, it's fucking
That's
hilarious.
Exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it's such a joy too, especially when you can see other people lighting up like that, and you go, "Oh, I know where he is," or "I know where they is." It's the same thing as good drugs. Oop, yep, it kicked in. Look at him. Look at her.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. You watch people joining you in that same arena, and you go, "Okay, cool, we're all here now."
Yeah.
Well, so now you've got you're back into jumping, you're back in Moab, you're doing all this stuff, you're doing the yoga as well. Is there there's a random person in France or Switzerland listening right now that wants to go to one of your yoga classes? How do they do that?
They can definitely find me on Facebook. Will Lajeunesse for sure is easy. LASHOHER. Or, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of Geneva yoga studios where I teach, Soham Yoga Geneva, also Sphere, yoga studio. And that's the easiest way to get me. But probably Facebook is the easiest. I think you and I are Facebook friends. So anybody who's listening to this, who's looking to get some time on a yoga mat or a high line or a rock climb, or I don't know, maybe do the occasional jump, can definitely find me on Facebook through you or my name.
Awesome. Well, I guarantee a whole lot more conversations are going to be coming up about Cross Keys. I have a feeling I'm going to want to hash out some more Cross Keys stories with you for sure.
Oh man, I would love that. Let me know.
I don't think I'm
going to get, what's your listenership on this podcast like? Do you know? Like how many downloads
I'm doing about 3,000 downloads a month now.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I thought I was talking to like 30 people.
Fuck no, man. No.
People might actually hear this.
There's a few people that are going to hear this for sure. That's why I always give my guests the option. Like, if you said something you don't want to say, tell me before I air this fucking thing.
No, man. It's all good. It's all good. I'll be curious. Yeah, I'll be curious to hear if I hear from anybody or anything.
Oh, you will. You will for sure. That's the benefit of the fact that I've been doing this with Blue Skies Magazine, because they've got such a big reach, and I've been writing for them for 10 years now. So,
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so they pump stuff out there, it turns out that all my being full of shit for all these years has helped out in one way or another.
Good for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Will, don't hang up quite yet, but thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me, man. This has been fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It's been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate the time, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. You too, bro.
Cheers. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.